I know, it took me a second to, okay. All right.
There we
So,
go. There's our wellness program team. Do you want to go ahead and introduce everybody?
okay, I can. Kamal Erkin is our chairman and of United Medical ACO. He can't be with us here tonight because he is currently conducting a board meeting. Also, Dr. Rapu Hundal, he is the program director. He's one of the endocrinologists within our UMACO. We have Tim McHugh, who is a physical therapist, and he joins us periodically to talk about fitness and exercise. And we have Amy and Jackie, who are both with us this evening. Go ahead, Amy. I'll let you take over from here. I'm going to work to help get Jackie back on the line.
Okay, so welcome to our Wellness Wednesday webinar program. Thank you, Donna. So we do this twice a month, and we started doing this last year when we had to stop teaching our diabetes classes. So we talk the second and the fourth Wednesday of the month about all different topics about diabetes. So we talk about diabetes itself and how it affects the different parts of your body, how it affects your heart, your kidneys, your feet, your eyes. We talk about exercise. Tonight, we're going to be talking with Jackie, our social worker, again, so the mental health part of it, and exercise, physical therapy. So all different topics. And tonight, we are very excited to have with us Beth Wright, one of our dietitians. Beth, you threw me off up there.
Yeah, I know.
Dietitians I'm lucky enough to work with, and Jackie, our social worker, who I think might be having some technical problems, but I'm sure she'll be joining us in a minute. So they're going to be talking tonight about goal setting. Patients with diabetes, we do actually require them, and well, we hope that they will set goals. So they're going to talk about the different types of goals that they set and how that works. And I don't know, Donna, are we ready to turn it over? Are you doing okay on your end? Okay.
She's like,
So one of the reasons I asked them to talk about goals is, as I said, we do work on different goals with diabetes patients, and it looks like we might have Jackie back with us.
Yeah.
All right. So now if you guys are ready, and Donna, are you ready? All right, and I will turn it over to Jackie and Beth. And Donna, if you can advance the slides, please.
I think I'm going to jump in first, unless Jackie, you want to kind of introduce yourself and say when you're going to jump in.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jackie Tomasetti. I am the Behavioral Health Program Manager here at United Medical ACO. I am a licensed clinical social worker as well. And I'm going to be talking with Beth today a little bit about goal setting and how our emotional health affects our eating, as well as how it can affect affect diabetes, and our how our goal setting can play into all of that as well.
All right. So thanks, Jackie. And I'm sure I'm going to learn from you tonight as well. So Amy will be very familiar with this, but and as well as our third dietitian who works at United Medical. Her name is Fran. We work as a team, obviously giving very specific information, education, encouragement surrounding learning to work with and hopefully the goal of controlling diabetes, getting to a very healthy place. But along with just talking about very specific things about diabetes and nutrition, dietitians are frequently needed to help coach people on how to make change in a very realistic way, because when you're working on changing nutrition habits, it can be a very challenging thing. We all have these kind of lifelong histories of how we've worked with food in our life, and some of these changes can be quite challenging. So that's part of what we do, and we definitely want to set up our patients for success versus disappointment. So, and one of the things I like to point out is, there's a difference between wishes and goals. So wishes are kind of these grand dreams that we have. But when we're talking about goals, those are something that typically involve a kind of process. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight is what kind of process can you use to make attaining goals easier. So we have what we call the SMART acronym, and each of those will stand for something. They are the 5 key components of goal setting. So the SMART stands for be specific, make your goals measurable, make them achievable, make them relevant, and also make them time bound. And I'm going to talk about each one specifically. So we'll go ahead to the next slide. So specificity. Basically here, we're saying we want you to kind of pinpoint something that you're trying to do. The more specific you get, the easier it is to try to actually attain that goal. So let me give you an example because I think it makes better sense when we put this into play. We'll work with a SMART goal that we're going to create during this presentation. So in regards to specificity, instead of saying, I want to get in shape. All right, that's a big, broad statement. Let's be specific. How do we want to set a goal to get in shape? So we're going to make a SMART goal, and the SMART goal we're going to come up with is, I think it was inspired by right behind me, I have my son's pull-up bar. So my SMART goal tonight is I want to be able to do pull-ups because that would help me get into shape. Okay, so that's specific. I want to do pull-ups. Okay, next slide. All right, measurable. So one of the things that we want to be able to do is we want to be able to monitor our progress towards achieving our goals. So typically when we're making a SMART goal, that involves putting some sort of number in this statement. And often I encourage patients to actually write down their SMART goals. That way we don't forget them as easily and we can refer back to them. So I'm going to take my SMART goal of I want to be able to do push-ups, but now I'm going to put a measurable number to that. So I'm going to say I want to be able to do 2 consecutive pull-ups. And that way I'd be able to measure, when I can do 1, that's great, but I haven't yet met my goal yet. Okay, next slide. All right, so remember how I told you at the beginning that we want to set ourselves, and we want to, as RDs, set our patients up for success. So that involves making realistic goals. Are they doable? So for example, I said, I want to be able to do 2 consecutive pull-ups. I did that because I'm female. Females don't tend to have as much upper body strength. I can't do the 16 pull-ups that my 18-year-old son does, but I might eventually be able to do 2 in a row. So I made it achievable for myself. It's okay to make them challenging. And 2 pull-ups will be very challenging for me. But it's okay to make them challenging. You just don't want to make them unrealistic. So you're going to possibly need to break things down from larger goals to larger, more difficult goals to smaller, more achievable ones. So in a sense, you're going to give yourself tasks over a period of time. So let me give you another example besides my pull-up one. Let's just say you want to learn to play the guitar. All right, that's a big, larger goal. So let's break that down into more achievable goals in order to meet that larger goal. So first, you might need to purchase a guitar or rent a guitar or borrow a guitar. Then you might set another goal, which would be, okay, I need to find an instructor online, most likely, since we're still in COVID. And then you might set up another goal where I'm going to actually set up lessons for that. But again, all those smaller goals are feeding our bigger goal. Next slide. So the other thing to think about is the relevancy of the goal that you're setting. And I think one of the keys to think about when you're setting a goal and you're thinking about how relevant is it, is to think about, is this really one of my goals, not somebody else's goal for me? Because, you know, the dietitian, for example, we can say, all right, we want you to be able to lower your blood glucose numbers. But in order to make that happen, you're the one having to actually do the work towards achieving that. So you kind of need to buy in. And if you don't buy in, it's not relevant to you. And it's likely that you're not going to have as much motivation to put the hard work in to do it. So this is kind of the introspection letter here, where you really want to choose some goals that mean something to you. So if I was going back to my pull-up goal, why would I have created that? How is that relevant to me? Well, I have an overall goal of wanting to be healthier. So if I do pull-ups, that will mean that I will have stronger muscles. And the more muscles I have, the more calories I'll burn and the more fit I will be. And possibly I'll actually lose a little weight, which then can improve my health. And I consider that beneficial. So that's how it would be relevant to me. All right, next slide. Now the last number, because we've gone through SMART, would obviously be time bound. So here's where we're using another number. We are setting dates. And that's an important part of this, because if I just say I want to do 2 consecutive pull-ups, but I don't put any time frame on it, of course, it's easy to push that goal off, and it's another week, I'm tired, I'm this and that. So I'm going to put a time frame on it so that it can help me focus more and act as a motivator, kind of something pushing me and prodding me to reach that goal. So applying it to my pull-up. So here's now my entire SMART goal. I want to be able to do 2 consecutive pull-ups by the end of the year by practicing my pull-ups at the gym 3 days a week. So I've now applied each of those letters to my goal that I'm then going to write down. Next slide. And I think this is where I turn it over to my colleague.
Yes, so thank you for that, Beth. So applying our SMART goals also comes into our self-care goals, because we have to be very realistic about what our mind and our body can handle. And we need to be able to seek support from our family members and our friends when it comes to applying our SMART goals, because we need support in that. And it's very important to have that network of support. And attending, education classes and taking time to build that healthy bond is very important, because, at the end of the day, when you come home, it's very easy to let loose, right? It's very easy to say, oh, I've been good during breakfast. I was really good during lunch. Now I can have that huge dinner and I can have that huge cheesecake because I was really good all day. So now I can eat everything for dinner and everything for dessert. But if you did that every single day, you can see how the behavior can become really out of control. And, it's also really easy to have that thought of, I don't know about you, but if somebody put a big plate of brownies in front of me or a plate of celery in front of me, I'm going to run toward the brownies. That's natural, right? So we need to be able to have that, support system that cheers us on every step of the way and is very supportive, and understanding what our SMART goals are and how it is important to us, and be able to cheer us on. So, Beth is my support person and saying, Jackie, you really want to reach that goal, right? It was important for you to obtain, this amount of pound lossage, or you want to reach this, blood glucose level. This is what you want to do. So it's very important that your support system knows what it is that you want, and you have to be able to obtain that and speak that, and be able to communicate that, so they also really know what it is that you want to do, so that they can help you obtain that. It's very important that you communicate your feelings so that they know how to help you. And they can help you move your body as well. No one said you have to run a 5K, but even, walking to the mailbox and back, that's a goal. No one said you had to run through your neighborhood, but moving your body is very helpful. So even setting small goals of walking to the mailbox and back, and then soon enough, you're walking down to the block and back. So setting small goals like that and then making them bigger can be really, really helpful. So next slide. So, thinking positive and always thinking about what the next step is can be really, really, really helpful as well. And as I was saying, celebrating those successes, no matter how small that they are, because, we have to be very, open and honest with ourselves about what we can achieve. I think that if we have been eating so poorly in the past, we have to be realistic about what we can achieve. If I've been eating 20 brownies a day for every day, let's be realistic about what we can achieve. I can't go to eating 0 brownies every single day, right? So let's make a realistic goal for myself of I'm going to start eating, let's say I'm going to eat, 18 brownies a day, and then I'm going to cut it back to, 15 brownies a day. We have to be realistic about what we're willing to do, because that's how we obtain that positive attitude, and that we're being good to ourselves and being successful in our positive thinking, because that's how we're being good to ourselves and we're achieving our positive best self. Because our body is, I always say we put ourselves in that bubble, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But being good to yourself and expecting too much of yourself is sometimes how you put yourself into that depression. If you expect too much of yourself and you make your goal too high, and then you aim too high, that's what puts yourself into that really high depression. So we always want to make sure that your goal is really achievable, like Beth was saying. And we want to make sure that our successes, even if they're small, they're celebrated. And not that they're celebrated always with a huge milkshake, but if they're celebrated with, maybe a fruit salad. That's exciting. We can celebrate sometimes with, big successes and small successes, but we want to make sure that, you're doing everything you can to enjoy yourself with your support system and being positive every step of the way. Next slide. So talking about emotional wellness and goals, and, don't feel discouraged if you have a bad day. We all have bad days, and that's completely natural. Sometimes we wake up and we don't feel like accomplishing our goals, or, I don't want to necessarily follow my routine. It happens all the time. We have a lack of interest in our activities. We don't sleep sometimes the best time, most of our days. So in some of those times, we have to be very mindful of how we're feeling, and we have to have healthy coping mechanisms. But if you ever feel as though sometimes things are getting worse and they're not progressing in positive ways, some of those things that I have listed there, if you ever feel as though you're starting to not take care of yourself in the worst way, I want to make sure that, you do reach out to somebody who can help you. If you ever feel suicidal or homicidal at any time, please make sure that you do reach out to a professional, because I don't want your symptoms to get any worse at any time. But if you are having, a bad day, don't feel discouraged, because at any time, your goals are definitely achievable. So when you feel out of control, so we tend to project our feelings onto others. And I know I've definitely done that, so I'm guilty, right? We come home, we've had a bad day at work, so who's going to get it, right? Our pets are going to get it, our spouses are going to get it, your children are going to get it. Everybody's going to get your emotions, because we go into that explode mode. So as you see there, I have that little guy in our bubble. And I always say, when people tend to poke your bubble, that's when we tend to explode, right? Especially if, you're in the break room at lunch and they have that big buffet, and, I'm there taking everything I want on my plate. I'm putting it on my plate, and I've just went out of control. Now I'm coming home angry because I just bursted my bubble and I bursted my goal. And I'm really taking my anger out on what I've done on everybody else. So instead of really processing it with my support system and said, hey, I kind of went out of control today. I want to get back into my goal. I want to get back into a safe headspace. I'm just coming home, projecting all of my feelings out on everybody else. So we really want to be aware of how we're feeling. We want to be productive in how we communicate our feelings, and we want to make sure that we don't let emotions poke our bubble, we don't let people poke our bubble, and that we always have that emotional and physical wellness awareness so that we can always stay on track with how we're feeling, and we can always stay on track with our physical and emotional goals. So problem solving is key. So if something doesn't feel right, thinking about what can change about it, what is going to change, and finding an actual solution. Because if it's not working, then what is not working in it? You know, don't just sit there with the same routine, the same problem over and over again. Obviously, if it's not working, then we need to figure out a solution for you. So work with your treatment team, work and figure out why the problem isn't working, and figure out how you guys can better achieve a different goal.
All right, back to me. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So this is actually where I think Jackie and my presentation really mesh, because we're coming about using the same techniques to reach whatever our goals is, whether it's emotional and mental health, or whether it's actual, physical health and blood sugar control. So one of the things I think that when we talk about setting up rewards when we attain a goal, that's I think it's important to be able to do that. We talked about how to write a SMART goal, but this is really the motivator to actually put in the work to do it. And I think often when we do set up rewards, we often think of right away food as the reward. And usually we think of foods that aren't necessarily as nourishing, right? So, it's that big old ice cream cone, or it's the chocolate cake, or it's the this or that. Even I think about it, sure. But one of the things that I'm actually trying to do in my life is set up more action-oriented goals. So maybe it's something like just fun time with a friend. And what's a gal friend that I haven't spent much time with lately? Maybe we can go to Longwood Gardens and go to it for an afternoon together. Maybe we want to be a little crazy and I can get my son and we can go, or my daughter, and go on a zip line course, or maybe you just want to purchase something for your hobby that you're like, yeah, maybe I probably shouldn't do this. But, if you meet one of these goals you've been working really hard at, maybe you get to do that for yourself. So again, something active that you get to do. But again, the other thing in setting up these rewards is that you want to make them realistic so you can actually attain them. So when I can do my 2 pull-ups, I can't tell myself that that I get to buy plane tickets to Hawaii. Probably not a realistic goal. But if I want to buy that new cute exercise top because I now can do 2 pull-ups, I'm all over that. That's an attainable reward. Next slide. Now, the other thing about goals is there's kind of a differentiation. We've got our bigger, broader themed long-term goals, and then we have more short-term goals. So broader tends to be when we're talking in months or maybe years. Short term, we tend to be talking in days to weeks kind of time frames. And those shorter goals tend to be more specific, more task focused. So let me put this into action, what I'm talking about. Let's just say our long-term goal is we want to lower our blood pressure. So, which would also help with diabetes, right? So I'm tying this in that way. So we want to lower our blood pressure. So we probably want to set up a few short-term goals in order to reach that broader long-term goal. So some of the short-term goals to be able to lower blood pressure might be that we sign up for a fitness class. Maybe it's that we involve some daily meditation. It could be also one of the things that we talk about, in addition to talking about blood glucose management and carbs and carbs and carbs, we also talk about sodium intake. And so we could talk about how we would reduce our sodium intake to help lower our blood pressure. So those would be examples of those shorter term goals. And of course, we could write SMART goals for each of those shorter term goals. So it makes it really easy to know how we're going to reach each of those. And it is okay to have numerous goals at the same time. Next slide.
And Beth, if I can just add, it's
Yeah.
also great if you incorporate your support system in your goals, because
Oh.
if they know what your goals are, it's easier for them to help you achieve them.
100%. Absolutely. So this is an interesting one too. And I think this is one that kind of makes us a little uncomfortable, or we like to ignore these things. But really, one of the parts of this whole process of achieving goals is we want to kind of play devil's advocate in a sense. You want to look ahead and think about what are the stumbling blocks that could actually get in the way of being successful in achieving my goals. So that way you can plan ahead on how you might deal with them. And I think Amy will probably shake her head, and I'm guessing Fran uses this, and I don't know, Jackie, you might even too, of when I'm working with patients, I often talk about a psychological concept of basically you're envisioning, you think ahead and you picture yourself in a space, like you go to a friend's house and they have this big table full of everything, or you're at the office like Jackie said earlier, and it's a lot of food that could really raise your blood glucose. You know, put yourself in the situation ahead of time, think it through. What could I do? Oh, I could first eat a big helping of salad, and I could have the chicken too. And then hopefully I'm more full. So then I choose what is the best treat on that table and what do I really, really want? And I'll have a small piece of that. But you've thought that through and you felt that. So you have a plan going in. So you've now identified one of your barriers and planned for it. Now, occasionally you'll try to do all that pre-planning. And of course, life throws something at you that you're like, whoa, where did that come from? I didn't anticipate this. I don't know what to do. And that's okay, because that is absolutely part of this whole process. And so instead of getting upset and feeling like a failure, just realize that that's the time where you just stop and you reset and then you start again. Adjustment is part of the process. And in fact, it shows that you're a good problem solver. So, example being, many of you might be familiar with this, but Edison, when he was creating the light bulb, I think he created about 10,000 prototypes before he got to a commercially viable light bulb. So that's a lot of stop, start again, but I am determined, I'm going to do this. So basically, if you're tempted and you want to give up, you might also want to think about, what's the reason I wanted to do this in the first place? You always want to kind of come back to that, because that really is our centering place. And that's, again, like Jackie pointed out, that's a time when you kind of go to your support network and you can say, I'm down. I've been trying things. I feel like I've got a lot of barriers. Can you help me think of how to get around this barrier? All right, next slide. So this exactly ties into what Jackie was talking about earlier. It's like she took the words out of my mouth, in fact. So seeking support, no matter if you're an introverted person or an extroverted person, we are, as human beings, our nature is that we are social creatures. So maybe your support network might just be kind of one person. Maybe it might be an entire team. So the other thing too is, as you're trying to achieve these goals, it also can be helpful, one, to just have your close-knit network just there to support you, but also finding people that are doing the same thing as you, forming a group of like-minded people that have the same challenges. So like people in this class with you, they can be part of your support team. And they can actually probably, they're walking the walk with you. So they might be able to support you in very different ways than your family and friends can. So also that's something that, Jackie, I'm sure can, she's got a lot of resources about some of the outside places that you can go where there's other people experiencing the same thing that you are. Two things I just want to add, and then I don't know, Jackie, if you've got something to maybe add on to this, but when you're forming a support group, do realize that sometimes the change that you are trying to make can be difficult for some people around you. And it's a kind of a weird situation, but they're used to you as you are. So if you're going to be making big changes, sometimes that makes other people uncomfortable or nervous, and they don't know how to support you, and they don't know what you're going to be like after this change. So they're a little scared about the nature of your relationship together. So one of the things that we encourage patients to do is, and as Jackie talked about, is talk with your support group. Give them examples of things that would help you. So you can say, hey, I really respond well to just little words of encouragement here and there. Or maybe it's something more action oriented where you could say, listen, while I'm going to the gym and trying to learn to do all these pull-ups to, lower my blood pressure and my blood glucose, I get so tired I can't come home and cook dinner. I'm just so exhausted. Could you cook me dinner twice a week? So give them something specific that they might be able to say, oh, of course, sure, I could do that. Lastly, I would say, listen also to yourself and how many people you share particular goals with, because a lot of us in our life know at least a couple of our people, whether it's family or friends, that maybe have a little bit of a jealous nature or are always the one to kind of play devil's advocate all the time. And so, you don't always have to share your goals with everybody. So share them with the people that you think can really benefit you. And again, and sometimes it might be somebody that you do trust very much, that you say, listen, I might need a little kick in the butt sometimes, but here's how I think I would respond best to that. And you can give them an example of how to do it, right? Because that one can cause a little friction sometimes. You said you didn't want to eat any more sugar, and look at you, you got a plate full of brownies, right, Jackie? Well, maybe that could be said in a little bit of a different way of, wow, I see that both of us have a lot of lovely dessert in front of us tonight. Maybe next time we'll celebrate by going on a walk together. All right, that's a way of kind of pointing out you got a lot of brownies, I'm probably not meeting your goals, but it's not saying you messed up. So go ahead, next slide. All right, so resources, I think I'm gonna turn this back over to Jackie because most of those are a lot of her good stuff.
So, Beth and I combined kind of put this together to just kind of give some support groups for everybody, as well as some behavioral health resources for everyone, just to explain that if you feel as though at any time that you're alone, that, you are not alone. There are support groups, especially with everything going on right now. A lot of people are online. So it's not just even here in the state of Delaware, there are people all over, the United States and even internationally right now that are online who are experiencing the same thing and who are going through the exact same thing you are, having hardship, with trying to get out and trying to be active and trying to express themselves. So there are so many people online. So please feel free to go online and, join a support group if you feel as though, you're having a hard time expressing yourself. There are some that are listed here, but there are plenty more online as well. So we just wanted to list a few. Also, if you feel as though at any time any of your emotions are getting, a little bit deeper or overwhelming, there are just a few behavioral health resources listed there at any time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact your treatment team for any further more information about that.
And then I just will say one last thing about kind of resources and online. So Google searches, I think I use Google searches probably in most of my counseling sessions, because a patient will say, I'm having a hard time with this. And I'm like, well, let's try it together on the phone here. And so if I want to apply it to my SMART goal thing that we were talking about with the pull-ups, one of the things I thought about when I was creating the presentation was, all right, how would I use Google as a resource for my how to do 2 consecutive pull-ups? And so I just used very specific search engine wording. And I said, fitness plan for pull-ups, female. And lo and behold, I had like 2 videos that came up that told me kind of a plan on how to start to get strong enough to be able to do pull-ups for a woman, because it's going to be very different for a man. And so you can do lots of cool things like that, like find half the recipes I make, I will do something, I'll just say something like healthy diabetes recipe using chicken and cilantro. And I'll probably have 20 of them to choose from. So you can really use Google to your advantage to kind of help find resources as well to help your health. I think that's all I have tonight. Jackie, what about you?
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. I know Beth and I definitely believe in you, and we know that your support system believes in you. So we just want to let you know that, you guys can definitely do it. Your treatment team believes in you. So, don't ever give up. Please make your goals. Please make them achievable, and make sure that you know that, you can do this, and never doubt yourself.
And is there question and answer opportunities at all, or?
I have a question.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, good.
All right. So we all know when we have people who we would like to set goals for them, but they've worked really hard in the past on trying to set goals and they haven't been successful in the past. And it seems insurmountable to lose the weight or lower blood sugar or lower blood pressure. So we want to get them started on the goal process, but they're not there yet. So any words of advice on that part of it from either one of you? For our patients who want to make change but aren't ready?
I mean, I can speak a little to that, but Jackie, lead off.
For me, my first thought would be what's driving the, I guess for me, it would be what's driving the behavior to not want the change. So there's probably a bit of a deeper issue to that I think I would tackle. Maybe the fear behind the change of driving that. I would question. That would be my first thought. There's a bit of fear there, fear of life, of what change would look like. And I think that's the question of looking at that. What would my life look like if I actually changed?
Well, and I think for some too, these familiar habits that are such good, well, I don't want to say good, such familiar coping mechanisms to have to give those up. So, and I don't know if you would think about fear there also, or
Yeah,
just
because
difficult.
it's so comfortable, right? To be in this comfortability period for your entire life. And then when you ask for that period of change, and it's like, what do you mean?
What do you mean? I have a bad day and I come home and I eat 20 brownies.
That's
what I
right.
do.
That's right. That's what I
And
do.
you want me to give those up? How would I feel better?
Exactly. Because it's a comfortability thing. It's comfortable. And when you start driving that change, it's that fear of what would life be like, right? If I actually did make that change, that fear of who would I be without this driving force of this is who I've been my entire life, and without it, I'm lost.
Donna, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think that kind of ties back in with what Jackie was saying earlier is, I think it's overwhelming, or we see more of the fear if we think we have to go from here to here, right? From the 20 brownies to the 0. So I think also talking to the patient about setting them as step goals, like you mentioned, it doesn't all have to be at one time. Maybe reducing, if we have 3 sodas a day, maybe the first goal for the first week is I'm only going to drink 2 sodas a day, right? Yes. I'm going to pick and choose. I'm going to have 1 for lunch, 1 for dinner. Okay. And I've cut out my 1 in the evening. And then maybe the next week, so we reward ourselves with something. And then the next week I go to maybe 1 soda, and maybe they'll never get to 0, but maybe that's okay. Maybe going from 3 to 1 is the answer. And I think sometimes that may be helpful to patients to realize that they don't have to give up everything to get to where they want to be.
And one of the things that I also try to do, and it's just something that I think we all, those of us involved in counseling, there's always room for improvement. But one of the things I work really hard to do is just to listen and hear where patients are in this whole process. There have been a handful of patients that I have had where I've actually kind of, after listening, said, well, I think really what I'm hearing is you don't want to make any changes right now. That it's not something you want to do. And kind of the look of shock on their faces is like, well, yeah, but my doctor wants me to. And I'm like, okay, well, doctor's not making the change, putting in all the hard work. So it's okay if you're not ready. Just know that we are here for you when you are. It is an open door. And then the other thing I try to let them know is that when they're scared about setting all these specific goals and this and that, sometimes I just ask, really, we just take a step back. And I might ask, okay, so you're scared to kind of set this kind of goal around this issue. Are you comfortable just deciding that you're just going to go with the flow of where your blood sugars are now? Is that okay with you? If it is, okay. If it's not, what do we want to do about that? And then sometimes actually just patients sitting back and realizing, wait a minute. Yeah, no, I'm not okay living with the possible consequences of having high blood sugar. Now they're going to buy in more. Therein lies the motivation. Therein lies that first step that we take together. And then we start to set a goal. And then they kind of get to be excited a little bit about it, and then so I guess that's kind of where I'm coming to you, Amy, is we have to respect where people are.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Donna, do you have anything else?
I don't think I do. I think you guys did a great job of doing that and trying to tie it in. I think the only one kind of thing that I did want to mention is, although we talked about these goals being a lot around, our health, right? Lowering our blood sugar or fitness, doing a pull-up, our mental health. Really, we could use that same goal setting process for anything we want to do. Anything we want to learn, anything we want to achieve. This just gives us that toolbox, right? That toolbox of how can we go about doing this. So I think that's why we wanted to leave it a little more broad tonight, so that we could give everyone kind of that toolbox that they need in order to apply this in many different aspects of their life, and not just, specifically nutrition or just specifically exercise, but to really utilize it wherever, they may need it, kind of like what you were saying, Beth, where they are. Because then I think it helps, maybe I want to focus on this first and then this. So it kind of helps them to get there and know how to start.
Okay, so a couple announcements if I can.
Sure.
So Beth and Jackie don't know this, but it fits right in. So in the summer in July, we will be starting a diabetes support group. So announcements will be coming for people to be invited if they'd like to. So we're another resource, and that will be, the schedule will be out for those. So yes, very exciting. All right, and are also
Been a long time coming. We've talked about this for how many years, Amy? So we're excited, but we too have to set goals, right? Goals of what we're going to do for our programs.
yes.
But yes, we'll be doing it on a monthly basis starting in July. So.
So, and we've got to work on those goals. So that's why we're starting in July. So we'll be ready in July to start. And then our next Wednesday webinar is April 28th. And it's Dr. Vade and myself, and we will be talking about diabetes and the gut. And so what diabetes can do to the stomach and digestion. And I will be talking specifically about gastroparesis and the diet for that. So we're going from big, broad goal setting to very specific.
Anything involving the gut, it gets me so excited.
I know.
You'll have to join us then.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about the microbiome. Very exciting. I know. Jackie didn't, she looked a little, "Ooh."
But it is, and that's one of the things we want to make sure that everybody does understand is, these webinars that we have, we try to keep the topics very interesting. We try to do a wide variety. So it may not be that everyone is specific to you, the patient. And we do have them. I want to put one more plug out there for our United Medical LLC YouTube channel. So you can go out there and check out our library. We have a whole library of our Wednesday wellness webinars. It's always a tongue twister for me. We did start these last year in August, and we do twice a month. So we do have quite a little library out there. Lots of different topics, as Amy mentioned earlier, from foot care, eye care, fitness, mental health. We've talked about diabetes after bariatric surgery. So we have a wide variety of topics that you may find interesting, and you can go back and listen to those at your leisure. So again, we want to thank everyone, thank our presenters tonight for a great presentation, and hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you back here in 2 weeks.
Great.
All right. Good night,
Good night.
everyone.
Good night.